Hey everyone, Molly Murray here with mollymurraybirthdoula.com, and I wanted to jump on today and talk about my transition from 1 to 2 children and then again from 2 to 3 children, and offer some tips and tricks, and then also share about, my class availability and birth and postpartum doula availability as well. So bear with me for a second. I'm going to share this over on my wall, and I will be right back with you. So just one second. I'm just sharing this from my business page over to my personal page so that friends can see it, because of Facebook algorithms. Sometimes business posts just aren't as readily available or seen. So I try to share things from my page from my business page to my website, or to my personal page. So it is raining quite a bit in here, and I've heard that it's the effects of Hurricane Harvey coming up, and I just want to send a shout out, donate, whatever money you can give. There are charities in town that are sending donations in truckloads. I know Matthew 25 is one, and there's others. So make sure to connect with whoever you need to in your community to donate, because really the effects of this hurricane are just so devastating, and it just wouldn't be right to do a video and talk about how it's raining here without mentioning how much we need to step up and help. So one second while I share this. I spent my morning at a postpartum visit, and it was a postpartum visit that was a part of like birth doula services. So I was at her birth, and it was a long birth, and like much longer for her and her family than it was for me. But I want to say that I was there for a good 24 hours, and then she had been laboring for maybe 2 days prior. And it was a VBAC, so a vaginal birth after a cesarean. And when they came in and suggested to do a repeat cesarean, she said, "Am I okay? Is baby okay? Then let's keep going." And I just really admired that. And I would have admired her had she said, "Okay, I'm done and I want a cesarean, that's okay too." Goodness knows she had worked long and hard, but instead she pushed through, and she went on to have a vaginal birth after a cesarean just a couple years ago. So I was at her postpartum doula visit, and she has 2 children, so she just had her second child, and it really brought me back to having my own second child and transitioning from 1 to 2 and then from 2 to 3, and how intense that was. So with my first time I had, I honestly don't remember my first postpartum much at all. Like, I know that we slept a lot. With my first baby, I spent a ton of time on the couch and in the bed and rested most days when the baby rested, and that was really practical to do so. Like, that's what they say, right? Sleep when the baby sleeps. Well, with 2 children, you can't sleep when the baby sleeps. Like, when the baby sleeps, your toddler is demanding, or your older child is demanding to be fed or need attention or whatever. So that advice of sleep when the baby sleeps with the second child or with the third child or fourth or fifth or more, that suggestion just really goes out the window. So transitioning from 1 to 2 children can be really hard. And I remember my daughter was 2.5 when my son was born, and she said, "Mommy, can I just have my mommy back?" And my heart broke. And I said, no, you can't have your mommy back. I'm sorry. And at another time she said, "Can we turn off the TV?" And I said, no, we can't turn off the TV. Like, I just need to focus on nursing and resting because I physically and mentally cannot do anything else. I just needed to be in my 4th trimester and not have a toddler hanging on me, but that was the reality. And we ended up going out of the house way too early. We left the house, well, too early for me and for my baby. We ended up going to the museum when my baby was like 3 weeks old and my toddler. I just felt so bad for being in the house that long, so we left. And then my infant got sick. Gosh, then like the guilt of being in the hospital with my infant and having this toddler at home. The transition from 1 to 2 was so incredibly hard. So if I had advice, let me wait to offer advice until I talk about my postpartum with my 3rd. So fast forward a few years, and I had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and my 3rd was born. And it was hard. I got postpartum depression with my 3rd, so I think that played a huge part in it. Whoa. There was a commercial that came on my Pandora. So my transition from 2 to 3 was really, really hard, harder than the transition from 1 to 2. But I think a big part of that was having postpartum depression with my 3rd. And I didn't really identify it until 12 weeks that is what I was going through. Like that the anxiety and the anger was because I had postpartum depression and or postpartum anxiety. And I wrote a blog post that I can link to that if anyone's interested. I see that I have people watching, so please say hi if you're here. The transition each time was so incredibly hard. And if anyone said to me, this is going to be hard, and if anyone has said to you, this is going to be hard, it's really unimaginable how hard it is. And you think, oh, I'll be fine, but then you're in the trenches and you're going, oh, shoot, I am not fine. Hi, Christy. You're in the trenches just knowing that I'm not okay. So I would be sitting there crying with my baby in my arms and my big kids in the room, and my partner would say, are you okay? And I would just bawl, no, I am not okay. And he would say, like, what's wrong? And I'm like, everything and nothing is wrong. Like, there's nothing that anyone could do to fix it. I was just so overwhelmed with the responsibilities of being a mother of 3 children, or of 2 children when I had 2. It was so big. Those feelings were so big. And I would look into my baby's eyes and be so happy. But then I would look up at the sink full of dishes and the toys on the floor and the bills piling up because I was on maternity leave. And it was really like just what I like to say, drowning. Like I was just drowning. And that was the beginning probably of postpartum depression. I didn't realize that I was going into it. And you wouldn't think that I would, but I did. And not every family experiences postpartum depression, of course, but many do. And many, many, many of us find that the transition from 1 to 2 is really hard, or the transition from 2 to 3 is really hard. So, okay, we've established it's really hard. So what are some things that we can do about it? It's really hard, we get it. So accepting the change and transition that your whole family is going through. Your toddler or your older children are going through a transition in and of themselves. You and your partner are going through a transition in your relationship. You as a mother are transitioning from a mother of 1 to a mother of 2 or 3 or 5. And so just kind of accepting that it's going to be hard for a little while, I think can be really helpful. So knowing that you're not alone in it being so hard for you. It's not just you, I promise. Even if everyone out on Facebook land does or says, this is easier than I thought it would be, or has pretty pictures, it's still really hard for all of us. So know that you're not alone. Know that the transition is hard, and you will get through this. It will get easier. So have hope that it will get easier. It will get easier. You're all going through a transition. Focus on your breath. When you feel that anxiety building or the tears welling up in your throat, not that your tears are actually in your throat, but that's always where I feel it. I get like choked up. So try to breathe into that space and be in that moment. And if you're not in a space where you can just sit and cry for a moment, and maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but just breathe, focus on your breath. Often if I can focus on my breath for just a few minutes, I come back down to a place where I can continue living. So remember, it will get easier. Something especially important for moms that are transitioning from 1 to 2, or 2 to 3, but they have a little toddler at the house, is to have like a gift basket, or maybe not a gift basket. Oh, Christy. Yeah, thank you. Which is funny that so many people say talking to me makes them a calmer person, because I deal with anxiety myself. So I appreciate when people say that, and I have to utilize these same tools that I share on a regular basis. And I so wish that someone would just come and sit with me in my home when I was in my postpartum. Like, just come hang out with me. That's really all I need. Like, the food is great, and the help around the house is great, but what I really was craving was company. So don't be afraid to ask for help, would be another tip. So remember, it will get easier. Kind of accept the transition that first is accept the transition, that it's really hard and that it's normal for it to be hard. You're not alone. Know that it will get easier. Focus on your breath whenever you're feeling that overwhelming feeling of anxiety or just overwhelm, really. Really, it's just a lot of overwhelm in those early days. And then don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There is so much help out there, whether it's family or friends or postpartum doulas, or even just on Facebook mom groups. Like, typing out how hard it is and that you need help can be so useful. And you'd be surprised that moms on Facebook, 1, they understand, and 2, they want to help. So don't hesitate to ask for help. Reach out and just share the struggles. Don't pretend like everything's okay when it's not. I really like the blog post by Birth Without Fear, I'm not okay, and that's okay. Because sometimes we're not. And then let go of that guilt. I say this often, and with each child that we bear, that we bring into this world, it's like bringing however much they weigh, that amount of guilt into the world, and like just throwing it on our back. Because we carry that guilt of like so many things, whether it's birthing them or feeding them, are we doing it right? But especially when we transition from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or 3 to 4, 4 to 5, we always have guilt, or we often have guilt of, am I giving the toddler enough attention? Have I taken something away from them? Should I have waited longer to have this baby? Did I wait too long? Like, either way, we are going to have it. So I invite you to write it down. Write down what it is that you're feeling guilty about, and crumple it up and throw it away. And just let that guilt go. So those are my tips for transitioning. If anyone else has any tips for transitioning from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, mine were pretty simple. So breathe into that space. Know that it's hard for many, many people, and that you're not alone. That it will get easier. I promise it will. It will get easier. Sometimes it gets a little harder, and then it gets easier, and then it gets harder, and then it gets easier. But you will have a break. You will have an easy point. Don't hesitate to ask for help, and let go of the guilt. Just just let it go. See what that feels like to let it go. Like, try to relax your shoulders and just let it go. What else? I wanted to share with you that thank you, Molly. I really appreciate that. I think about my mom often and know that so much of how I am as a mother is impacted by how she was as a mother towards me in those early years. And I truly believe that I am living her legacy. Like, I'm just carrying on my mother with me, just as we all are infusing our children with our own attributes, and they will carry on our legacy long beyond when we're here. And they won't remember the bad things. Like, I remember, and I know that my own mom had a lot of baggage, and I can tell you stories about when she lost her temper with me. But really, what I remember most is how much she loved me, and that she was such a fun person to be around. So despite all of the times of overwhelming angst or frustration, or despite despite our flaws, hi Christina, despite our flaws, our children are going to be okay, and they're going to carry with us, or they're going to carry with them us for all of time. Up in our pediatrician's office is a sign that says the way that we talk to our children becomes their inner voice. And I wish I could remember who that quote was by. But that's so true. And so I try to remember that, like, the way that we talk to our children becomes their inner voice. But if I carried that with me for all the things that I said, like, I would be like, oh my gosh, like, they're going to need therapy. Because I'm not always the most calm or centered or gentle parent, and that's okay. Like, they're going to be okay, and they're going to remember those times that I told them how strong they were and are, and how much that they're capable of. Yeah, Debbie, I hate it when I lose my temper too, and you're not alone. You are not alone, and you are a really good mother despite those times of losing your temper, even when you just lose it beyond what you ever thought you were capable of. I've shared with other people that there have been times, especially when I was in my postpartum depression, or especially when I was going through times of grief in my own life, that I lashed out at my children and felt like a monster. Like, I would shift into this, like, guttural, deep voice and talk to them so harshly, and it wasn't pretty, and it's not pretty, and it's not something I'm proud of, but when I shared that piece of me with other people, it's amazing how many moms in the rooms go, oh, I've done that too. I've been there. I've done that. I've said mean things. I've yelled at my children. Yeah, you're not alone, so try not to beat yourself up for that. Yeah, does anybody have any questions? This took a different route because someone mentioned my mom, but it's really perfect because when I think about her, I think about all the positives, even despite all of her flaws or all the times that she lashed out on me. I was chased with a paddle brush one time, like a brush that you brush your hair with. And I remember her chasing me around the house, like, and I was covering up my butt, and she was smacking my legs, and that was horrible. But now I laugh, and, like, yeah, it was horrible, but she loved me so much, and, like, she was just trying to protect me. Often when I get the most angry at my children, it's when they've done something really irresponsible, or it just scared me so much. And that's when I get really angry. Like, if one time Annabelle was riding her bike, and she went towards the street, and you guys, I grabbed her up, and I snatched her up, and I brought her in the house, and I said, don't you ever run out in the street again. And I was really loud and kind of irate with her, but she could have died, and it just scared me so much. And she still will bring that up, like, you were so mean. Or my neighbor came out and actually asked, like, what happened? So those times that we lash out, it's often more out of love than anything else. And so try to be gentle on yourself. When you're lashing out at your children, it often is a good sign that you need some self-care, that you're doing so much. You're loving so much. You're pouring so much of yourself into motherhood that you could really use a break and some self-care. And so that's where going back to that, asking for help when you transition from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. Some of you skip, and go 2 to 4 with twins. How important it is to ask for help and take time for self-care, whatever that looks like to you. The woman I was just at the postpartum doula visit with, she said that she takes self-care in the shower, like 30 minutes of just close the door, and her husband is to go into the bedroom with the baby and the toddler, and she doesn't want to hear if they're crying for her. And that's not coming from a place of like she doesn't love them. It's coming from, mommy just needs a break so that when I go back to you, I can be more present and not lose my cool. So let me see if I caught all the comments here. I think so. So thank you to all for tuning in. I am getting better about doing live videos and jumping on, and I'm really grateful to have people that are watching, because otherwise it's just me talking to myself, which is okay too. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me anytime. I am open, and if I'm not personally available to help you, I can connect you with people that are available to help you. It really is, Debbie. You're in the thick of it. You're in the thick of it. Yes. All right. I will talk to you all soon. A couple things. I am available in December 2017, and then in January, February, not March, and then again in April and beyond. I am available as a birth doula. Wait, Christina. Yes, I'm here. And I have childbirth class in September 15th and September 17th, a weekend immersion that is Friday night and then Sunday day, and that's really geared towards like second-time parents who are preparing to give birth to their second or subsequent babies and have already taken a childbirth class. So this is like a weekend refresher, or for first-time parents who don't have time. So what are some things I can prep myself mentally for 2? Positive affirmations. You are a good mother. Start reading and talking to your first about number 2. So get some books at the library, and start lowering your expectations now. I only partially, I'm kidding. But even saying it seriously, that's okay. You didn't miss this at the beginning at all. It's good things to think about. But I need to think about it a little bit more. But just being gentle with yourself now, and maybe even spending some times away from your toddler now, so that it's not so hard with number 2. So whether that's having grandma or grandpa spend time with them. I think that sometimes with our first, we're so attached to them and we love them so much, and we're just unwilling to let anybody else watch them or care for them. But then it becomes necessary with the subsequent baby, and then the toddler's like, nope, I only want mommy. So trying to prepare yourselves for that, like all of you as a family, that will be a huge transition. And what else? Making self-care a big part of your practice, whatever that looks like to you, whether it's going to yoga or practicing meditation or just spending time focusing on your breath. Debbie, they do have so much going on in their little bodies, and I have a really hard time with this as well because my child goes from zero, my third goes from 0 to 150 so quickly. You're welcome, Christina. I will send more things your way as I think of them. My third goes from 0 to 150 so quickly, and it kind of drives me crazy because I'm like, you were just fine a second ago, and now you're losing it. Like, you're on the floor kicking and flailing, and I really don't know how to help you right now. But to remember that, like, they do have really big emotions and sometimes don't know what to do with them. We are, as adults, like, you know, we might get with our girlfriends and just say, oh, I'm having a bad day, or like, gosh, I've just been so emotional this week. But yet when our children are so emotional for a week, we wig out on them, or like, you know, stop crying, hold it together. And yet we sometimes struggle with our big emotions. And we've had years, you know, 25, 30, 40 years of dealing with our emotions, and yet they're like 1.5 or 2 years old. They're so new to these big emotions. And so having empathy and compassion and regulating your own emotions so that you're not mirroring their big, you know, their overwhelming emotions, or not being able to handle that they want what they want and they want it now. And that's another thing, is like saying what you want and like doing whatever it takes to get it. That's a really positive attribute. I mean, I do that in life and business. If I want something, I write it down, I make goals, I do what I have to do to get there. And yet when our toddlers are like, I want it and I want it now, we're like, you know, no, you just have to sit down and be quiet, instead of redirecting or talking about when they can have whatever it is that they want. So taking a more gentle approach as much as possible, and knowing that they're so impressionable, and that they'll be okay if we say no. Like, as people, we have to be okay with sometimes we can't always get what we want, especially if we have an older child and a baby. The older child often has to learn some boundaries, or I think I may have mentioned, but having a basket, I think I got distracted. Imagine that. Having a basket of things that are really special for your toddler to play with, or to special books for them to read. In birth preparation, we talk about, like, when you have your first baby, having your own basket for like your water and a granola bar and the phone and a journal, like a little self-care basket. But it's equally important to have a basket for your baby or toddler, or even a bigger child, something special that every time you sit down with your baby, you get out this special basket just for them, and have like busy activities for them to do, or a special book for the two of you to read. Can be helpful. And like, those things only come out when mommy has to sit down and nurse the baby, which is pretty much all the time in the first few months, and that's okay. But having special things that they can have, and special play dates or times with just your toddler. So maybe when your partner gets home from work, or maybe grandma can come over for a little bit and hold the baby while you focus on giving the toddler or older child attention and love, because they do miss that. I shared at the beginning, but when I had my second child, my daughter said, "Mommy, can I have my mommy back?" And I just cried and said, "No, I'm sorry. You can't." And that has to be okay. So knowing that you're all going through your own process. And we watched a lot of TV in those first weeks and months when my second was born, because I was just stuck kind of like nursing the baby, and the toddler had to watch more TV than I would have liked. Yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to go. It is 3:22, and I've been here for quite a while. But I'm happy to be here, and I love coming on live and hope to do this more. If you have ideas for a live video, please send me a message and let me know that you would like me to talk about whatever it is, whether it's birth planning or another idea would be like recovering from a traumatic birth, or dealing with expectations of family members that want to be at your birth and you've said no, or yeah, just let me know what you would like to hear, and I'd love to chat with you guys about those things. So feel free to send me a message anytime, and yeah, have a great day. Talk to you soon. Donate to Hurricane Harvey ASAP. Bye.